I think you're good to go.
Okay, I'll make a start then. So,
I'm going to just
welcome
turn
to
my
the
video off.
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. So, welcome to the Gemological Association of Australia site. I'm with the Queensland Division, and after I graduated a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to do a bit of travel around, and one of those travels was on a gemological tour, and we got to go to the glass filling factory in Thailand. So I thought it was so interesting. It was not what I expected. So I decided that a presentation educating others how the process worked was in order. So please enjoy. So it was in 2017. So it's in Chantaburi in Thailand, about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours drive from Bangkok. It's not what I expected. It wasn't a factory. It's in a suburban house and yard. When we arrived, the guys were having their lunch, as you can see on the left, and just some of their stock on the right. So, stockroom of rough untreated material, mostly ruby. Why ruby? Because that's where the money lies. Brought in from anywhere, currently believed to be mostly African. And we'll fire off the video. Okay, so very poor quality material. In case you missed that, here's another close-up. Literally slack road gravel. Okay, so they started by tumbling about 800 kilos at a time and washing the rough in hydrofluoric acid. If anyone has ever watched Breaking Bad, that's the bad stuff that eats through bathtubs, among many other things. We were warned not to pick anything up because if it had any of that still on it, it would start to eat into your fingers and right through to your bones. And I just had to take a picture because it's not very ecologically friendly. And that's their storage of the acid. And again, this is in a suburban street. So I hope by now that they've cleaned it up, but certainly not good at the time. They also had to move their tumbling out further into semi-rural because they had their tumblers going 24/7, and despite the fact that they were inside BESA block containers, it was still annoying the neighbours, so they had to move it out. So once it's cleaned and dried, the rough is mixed with the glass material, which is actually a yellow-green ceramic glaze in a powder form. So just as if you were cooking something at home, you're coating it with flour. Same process, same idea. And it's not any particularly special glaze. Apparently they source it from the equivalent of their local Bunnings. Whatever's on special, as long as it's a yellow-green, that's what they go for. So then they place it into crucibles, ready for cooking. So the first cook is at 8 hours at 1250 degrees Celsius. And a little video. So for anyone wondering, yes, that is Ross Chapman's voice. It was his tour that we went on. Apparently their biggest expense is actually the electricity, which is quite expensive in Thailand. And they've got about 20 of these kilns happening.
Sally, we didn't hear your audio of your video. The video audio is not coming through.
It was a little bit low, so don't. It was just talking about what I'd written down, 1250 degrees Celsius. So the crucibles are emptied onto a steel table and the material is scattered as quickly as possible to prevent it sticking together. Now, before I start the video on this, please notice that he's in his safety gear. He's got his big gloves on, he's got his safety boots on, his safety sandals, and his motorbike helmet. So if you look at the ceiling above him, you can see even the fumes are quite corrosive. Apparently those crucibles break about once every 3 times that they use them. Okay, so despite his best efforts, some of them stick together. So one person has the unenviable task of snipping the stuck pieces apart. She must have done something wrong because this looked like the worst job in the world, and she was not impressed. So imagine doing that all day. And I don't know if anyone noticed that on her desk, she was also sorting it into the different sizes as she went. Okay, so quite often there's more glass than ruby. So just in transmitted light. Okay, then the material is put through a second burn for 3 hours at around half the original burn temperature to even out the glass and give a smooth, shiny appearance. This time they asked us to move behind the safety fence. So the camera kept trying to focus on the fence. So you can imagine if any one of those things flipped off onto his foot, it would be not a happy chappy. So it's all various sizes. They've just whacked it all together. Okay, so you can see it's not a real high-tech process, not what I imagined at all. Okay, so they're producing about 50 kilos of glass-filled rough a week. So that's an awful lot. As far as we know, they're the only guys doing it. But as you know, it's flooding the market. So that's like 1 week's worth of production ready to be shipped out. Okay, so other materials besides ruby are being treated. This is just me sticky beaking into their different bags. That's obviously ruby. I think that's topaz, not 100% sure. And once it's done, they sold it in bulk lots to the people who carve and cabochon and work the material in different ways. So these are fairly big chunks. Okay, on the same trip at the Jewellery Trade Centre, I bought some carvings. I thought they were a pretty good deal at $25 US. They're a fair size. I was suspicious that they were glass filled, but I gave it a go anyway. And of course, when I got them home and had a closer look, they were. The bottom image with the long wave ultraviolet light, it's more subdued than you would expect, which is a further indication that the material is coming from Africa because there'll be a bit of iron in it. And then in transmitted light, you can start to see the lamellar twinning and you can see your bubbles. So just a little sample of the rough and the faceted material. So how do you identify it? Your bubbles, of course. Some of it, as you saw, was more glass than ruby. Even the stuff that doesn't have a big percentage of glass, you're still going to get bubbles in it. So that's the key to look for, and your blue flashes. and you'll quite often see lamellar twinning because they're using the low-grade material. And, of course, that twinning allows the glass to get in, and that clarifies the whole the transparency of the material. Okay, so luster differences and surface reaching fractures. So use your incident light. When it bounces off, you'll see your surface reaching fractures easily, and your luster differences can be all over the shop because, as you saw, it's literally it's like a lozenge that's been half melted in the sun. Okay, so if you miss the signs and you work with the material, you could end up with the result on the right, or worse, if you hit it with a torch, it could literally melt on you if you really give it a go. But at the very least, you'll end up with it all fracturing. Okay, some examples of other material. So you've got sapphire, you've got topaz, we think the green stuff is pargasite, which occurs with the ruby. So, and see more interesting adventures at GAA Queensland. We'd love to share our information. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. That was a great presentation. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you, what's pargasite? That's something I'm not familiar with. Or have I forgotten?
No, I'd never heard of it either. It's not generally a gem material, but in Vietnam, North Vietnam, where they get the ruby and the spinel in the Marble Mountains, the pargasite appears in the same material. It's one of those mineralogy things, but it probably gets mixed up.
So they're treating it and selling the pargasite?
We don't know, but that's just some samples that we picked out of the bags that they had. There wasn't much of it. That's why we think it was the pargasite. It just accidentally got mixed in.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was fascinating.